Billionaire marries an overweight and unemployed woman for a bet and is surprised. When Lucas Montenegro, an arrogant and bored billionaire, lived for outrageous bets with his millionaire friends. During an extravagant party, one of them proposed a challenge. Lucas had to marry an overweight and unemployed woman, someone high society would never accept, and turn her into a refined lady within a year. Convinced that money and status could fix anything, he accepted without hesitation. That's how he found Carolina, a plus-sized woman struggling after losing her job and being humiliated by her ex-boyfriend. Tired of her cruel reality, she accepted the deal, seeing it as an opportunity to rebuild her life. In the first few months, Lucas treated Carolina as a project, paying for surgeries, nutritionists, stylists, and etiquette lessons. But to his surprise, she didn't just transform physically, she blossomed. With sharp intelligence and an irresistible charisma, Carolina began attracting the kind of attention that had once been reserved for Lucas. She discovered a talent for business and, using what she had learned, launched her own inclusive fashion brand, winning over clients Lucas could never reach. Over time, her company skyrocketed, surpassing even some of his most successful ventures. Then, on their vow renewal day, the very date that marked the end of the bet, Carolina revealed her final move. She had known about the bet all along. But instead of feeling used, she used Lucas. With the influence she had gained, she not only became one of the most powerful women in the country, but also filed for divorce, walking away with half of his fortune and leaving the billionaire ruined. Lucas realized too late that the real challenge had never been transforming Carolina, but being outplayed by her. Lucas Montenegro stood at the edge of his lavish penthouse balcony, gazing out over the sprawling cityscape of New York. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the skyline, but Lucas felt none of its warmth. Boredom had become his constant companion, a shadow that followed him even in the midst of extravagant parties and the laughter of his millionaire friends. Tonight was no different. The annual charity gala was in full swing, with the elite of society mingling, sipping champagne, and flaunting their wealth. Lucas, however, found little joy in the spectacle. He had everything a man could desire: money, power, and a reputation that commanded respect. Yet he felt trapped in a gilded cage, suffocated by the expectations of high society. As the evening progressed, Lucas's friends gathered around him, their laughter echoing in the opulent hall. Among them was Victor, a fellow billionaire known for his outrageous bets and wild ideas. With a mischievous glint in his eye, Victor leaned closer to Lucas, his voice low and conspiratorial. "Let's make this night interesting, shall we?" he proposed, a sly smile creeping across his face. "I bet you can't marry an overweight and unemployed woman within a month. And not just any woman, someone society would never accept." The challenge hung in the air, electrifying and absurd. Lucas raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "You think I can't do it?" he replied, a smirk forming on his lips. "I'll take that bet." The stakes were set. If Lucas succeeded, he would win a substantial sum of money and the admiration of his peers. If he failed, he would have to donate a hefty amount to charity. The thrill of the challenge ignited a spark within him, and he felt a rush of excitement. Little did he know, this bet would change his life in ways he could never have imagined. Carolina Santos sat alone in her small apartment, staring at the flickering screen of her laptop. The job she had loved so dearly had slipped through her fingers, leaving her adrift and struggling to make ends meet. Her ex-boyfriend's cruel words echoed in her mind, a constant reminder of her worthlessness. "You'll never amount to anything," he had sneered before walking out of her life for good. With each passing day, Carolina felt the weight of her circumstances pressing down on her. She had always been a plus-sized woman, and society's harsh judgments had taken their toll. The humiliation of losing her job and the betrayal of someone she had loved left her feeling defeated. But tonight, as she scrolled through social media, a glimmer of hope caught her eye. An advertisement for a local charity gala promised a night of glamour and opportunity. Perhaps it was time to step out of her comfort zone and reclaim her life. With a deep breath, Carolina decided to attend the gala. She would wear her favorite dress, the one that hugged her curves and made her feel beautiful, even if just for a moment. Little did she know fate had something extraordinary in store for her. The gala was a whirlwind of lights, laughter, and music. Carolina felt out of place among the elegantly dressed guests, but she held her head high, determined to enjoy the evening. As she navigated through the crowd, she caught glimpses of the wealthy elite, their conversations filled with superficiality and pretense. Just as she was about to retreat to the refreshment table, a familiar face caught her attention. Lucas Montenegro stood at the center of the room, exuding confidence and charm. She had seen him in the tabloids, a billionaire known for his extravagant lifestyle and daring bets. Before she could turn away, Lucas's gaze landed on her. To her surprise, he approached with an air of curiosity. "You look stunning," he said, his voice smooth and inviting. Carolina felt her heart race. "Thank you," she replied, trying to mask her nervousness. Lucas's friends watched with amusement, whispering among themselves. "What's the bet, Lucas?" one of them called out, laughter in his tone. Lucas smirked, his eyes never leaving Carolina's. "I'm about to make a life-changing decision," he replied cryptically. Carolina felt a rush of adrenaline. She had no idea what he meant, but something about his presence ignited a spark within her. As the night unfolded, Lucas and Carolina found themselves drawn to each other, sharing stories and laughter amidst the chaos of the gala. Days turned into weeks, and Carolina found herself thinking about Lucas more than she cared to admit. Their encounter at the gala had been brief, but it had left a lasting impression. She had never met anyone like him, someone who seemed genuinely interested in her, despite the societal norms that dictated otherwise. Meanwhile, Lucas was consumed by the bet. He had never expected to feel a connection with Carolina, and the more he learned about her, the more intrigued he became. Her intelligence and resilience captivated him, challenging his preconceived notions of beauty and success. One evening, as they sat in a cozy cafe, Lucas decided to take a leap of faith. "Carolina," he began, his voice steady, "I want to propose something to you. I know this sounds crazy, but what if we entered into a marriage contract? I'll help you transform your life, and in return you'll help me win this bet." Carolina's heart raced. She had been struggling to find her footing, and this opportunity felt like a lifeline. "What exactly do you mean by transform?" As the weeks turned into months, Carolina found herself immersed in a world she had never imagined. The initial shock of being thrust into the spotlight alongside Lucas began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of purpose. She was no longer just the overweight, unemployed woman who had been humiliated by her ex-boyfriend. She was becoming someone new, someone powerful. Lucas, on the other hand, was still treating the entire situation as a project. He had hired the best nutritionists, personal trainers, and stylists money could buy. Every week they would meet for their sessions, and while he was focused on her physical transformation, Carolina was busy discovering her own strengths. She was learning about business, branding, and the fashion industry, absorbing everything like a sponge. One afternoon, as they sat in a chic cafe after a grueling workout, Carolina looked at Lucas, who was scrolling through his phone, seemingly disinterested in their surroundings. "You know, Lucas, I've been thinking," she began, her voice steady. He glanced up, raising an eyebrow. "About what?" "About my future. I want to do something meaningful with this opportunity you've given me," she said, her heart racing. "I want to start my own fashion line." Lucas chuckled, shaking his head. "You mean like a hobby? Carolina, you need to focus on the bet. We have a year to transform you into a lady, remember?" "No, I'm serious," she insisted, leaning forward. "I've been doing a lot of research. There's a huge market for inclusive fashion. Women like me deserve to feel beautiful and confident, regardless of their size." He paused, considering her words. "Inclusive fashion? That's a niche market. It's not exactly what high society is looking for." "Maybe not high society, but there are millions of women out there who feel just like I did. I want to create something that empowers them," Carolina replied, her passion igniting. Lucas studied her for a moment, and for the first time she saw a flicker of respect in his eyes. "All right, let's say I'm on board. What do you need?" Carolina's heart soared. "I need a business plan, funding, and connections in the industry. I want to start small, maybe with a few pieces, and then expand. Fine, he said, leaning back in his chair. I'll help you, but you have to promise me that you'll still focus on the bet. We can't lose sight of that. Deal, she said, extending her hand. They shook on it, and in that moment Carolina felt a shift in their dynamic. This was no longer just a bet for her. It was a chance to reclaim her life. Over the next few weeks, Carolina poured her heart and soul into her new venture. With Lucas's financial backing, she hired a small team of designers and marketers who shared her vision. They worked tirelessly, brainstorming ideas and sketching designs that celebrated body positivity and inclusivity. As the launch date approached, Carolina's excitement grew. She had created a collection that featured vibrant colors, flattering cuts and styles that catered to women of all shapes and sizes. It was everything she had dreamed of, and she couldn't wait to share it with the world. Meanwhile, Lucas was busy with his own projects, but he made time to support Carolina. He attended meetings with her, introduced her to influential contacts, and even helped her secure a venue for the launch party. As they worked together, a new camaraderie developed between them. They began to understand each other beyond the confines of the bet. The night of the launch party arrived, and Carolina was a bundle of nerves. She stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her outfit, a stunning dress from her own collection that hugged her curves perfectly. Lucas entered the room, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit. "You look incredible," he said, his eyes widening in genuine admiration. "Thanks, Lucas. I just hope everyone loves the collection," she replied, biting her lip. "They will. You've put your heart into this, and it shows," he reassured her. As they arrived at the venue, Carolina was overwhelmed by the crowd. Influencers, fashion bloggers, and potential buyers filled the space, all eager to see what she had created. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement, and for the first time, Carolina felt like she belonged. The event kicked off with a runway show featuring her designs. As the models strutted down the catwalk, Carolina's heart raced. She watched as the audience reacted positively, clapping and cheering for each look. It was a dream come true. After the show, Carolina mingled with guests, receiving compliments and praise for her work. Lucas stood nearby, observing her transformation with pride. He had never seen her so confident, so alive. As the night progressed, Carolina found herself deep in conversation with a prominent fashion editor who expressed interest in featuring her collection in a major magazine. "This is groundbreaking," the editor said, her eyes sparkling. "You're going to change the industry." Carolina beamed, feeling a surge of validation. She glanced over at Lucas, who was engaged in a discussion with some investors. He caught her eye and smiled, a look of approval on his face. But just as everything seemed to be falling into place, a familiar face appeared in the crowd, her ex-boyfriend, Mark. He sauntered over, a smug grin plastered on his face. "Well, well, if it isn't the new fashionista," he sneered. "What do you want, Mark?" Carolina asked, her heart sinking. "I just came to see how the big shot is doing. Heard you're marrying a billionaire now. How's that working out for you?" he taunted. Lucas stepped forward, his presence commanding. "She's doing just fine, thanks. Why don't you leave her alone?" Mark scoffed. "You think you can change her? She'll always be the same." "Girl I knew, desperate for validation." Carolina felt a rush of anger. "I'm not desperate for anything. I'm building my own life, and I don't need your approval." Mark's expression shifted, and for a moment she saw a flicker of jealousy. "Good luck with that. You'll need it," he said before walking away. As he disappeared into the crowd, Carolina felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She had stood up for herself, and it felt empowering. Turning back to Lucas, she smiled. "Thank you for defending me." "Always," he replied, his gaze steady. The rest of the night was a whirlwind of success. Carolina's collection received rave reviews, and she secured several orders from boutiques eager to carry her line. As the evening came to a close, she felt a sense of accomplishment that she had never experienced before. In the days that followed, Carolina's fashion line took off. Orders flooded in, and she quickly became a rising star in the industry. Lucas continued to support her, but she was no longer just his project. She was his equal, and their relationship began to evolve. However, as Carolina basked in her newfound success, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was brewing. beneath the surface. Lucas had been distant lately, often lost in thought. She wondered if he was beginning to realize that their bet was coming to an end. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of their penthouse, Carolina decided to confront him. "Lucas, is everything okay? You seem preoccupied." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I've just been thinking about the bet. We're nearing the end, and I'm not sure what that means for us." Carolina's heart raced. "What do you mean?" I never expected you to become this incredible woman. I thought I was just going to change you, but you've changed me too," he admitted, his voice low. She felt a rush of emotions. "Lucas, I never wanted this to be just a bet. I wanted to prove to myself that I could be more than what others thought of me. I know, and you've done that. But what happens when the year is up? What do we do then?" he asked, his eyes searching hers. Carolina took a deep breath, realizing that the stakes were higher than she had anticipated. "I don't know, but I do know that I want to keep building my brand. I want to keep growing." Lucas nodded, but there was a hint of sadness in his expression. "And what about us?" In that moment, Carolina understood that their relationship had transformed into something deeper than either of them had anticipated. But the reality of their situation loomed over them like a dark cloud. They were bound by a bet, and the end was approaching. As the night wore on, Carolina couldn't shake the feeling that the real challenge was just beginning. She had fought hard to reclaim her life, but now she had to confront the truth about her feelings for Lucas and what it meant for their future. Little did she know, the biggest twist was yet to come. The days turned into weeks, and as the end of the bet approached, Carolina found herself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. Her fashion line was thriving, and she was gaining recognition in the industry, but the looming deadline of their agreement cast a shadow over her success. The closer they got to the one-year mark, the more she felt the weight of their arrangement pressing down on her. Lucas, too, seemed to be grappling with the reality of their situation. He had been supportive throughout Carolina's transformation, but there was an underlying tension that neither of them could ignore. Their conversations had shifted from playful banter to serious discussions about the future, and Carolina could sense that Lucas was struggling to reconcile his feelings for her with the terms of their bet. One evening, as they sat in their living room, Carolina decided it was time to address the elephant in the room. "Lucas, we need to talk about what happens after the bet is over," she said, her voice steady but laced with apprehension. He looked up from his laptop, his expression serious. "I've been thinking about that too. It's hard to ignore the fact that our time is running out." "What do you want to happen?" she asked, her heart racing. "I don't know," he admitted, running a hand through his hair. "I never expected to develop feelings for you. This was supposed to be a challenge, but you've become so much more than that to me." Carolina felt a rush of hope mixed with fear. "I feel the same way. But what does that mean for us? Are we just going to go back to being strangers once the bet is over?" Lucas sighed, leaning back in his chair. "I don't want that, but I also don't want to complicate things. We started this as a bet, and I don't want to ruin what we have by trying to turn it into something more." "Why can't we try?" Carolina pressed, her voice rising slightly. "I've changed so much, and I know you have too. We've built something real here." He looked at her, his eyes searching hers. "I'm scared, Carolina. What if this is just a phase? What if once the bet is over we realize we're not meant to be together? Then we'll figure it out together," she replied, her heart pounding. "But I don't want to walk away from this without at least trying." Lucas hesitated, and in that moment Carolina could see the conflict in his eyes. He was a man who thrived on control and certainty, and the unpredictability of their situation was unsettling for him. But she also saw a flicker of desire, a longing that mirrored her own. "Let's take it one step at a time," he finally said, his voice softening. "We'll see where this goes after the bet is over, but I need you to promise me that you won't lose sight of your goals. Your fashion line is your priority." "I promise," she said, feeling a surge of determination, "but I also want to explore what's happening between us." As the days passed, Carolina threw herself into her work, but the tension between her and Lucas lingered in the background. They continued to support each other, attending events and meetings together, but there was an unspoken understanding that their relationship was on the brink of a significant change. One afternoon, as Carolina was finalizing plans for her next collection, she received a call from a major fashion magazine. They wanted to feature her in an upcoming issue, highlighting her journey and the success of her brand. Excitement bubbled within her, and she rushed to share the news with Lucas. "Lucas, you won't believe this!" she exclaimed, bursting into his office. He looked up, a smile spreading across his face. "What is it?" "They want to feature me in a major magazine. This is huge," she said, her eyes sparkling with joy. "That's amazing, Carolina. You deserve it," he replied, standing up to embrace her. The warmth of his body against hers sent a thrill through her, and for a moment she forgot about the complexities of their situation. As they pulled away, Lucas's expression shifted. "You know, this could be a turning point for your brand. You'll need to be prepared for the attention that comes with it." "I know, but I'm ready for it," she said, her confidence unwavering. "This is my chance to show the world what I can do." "Just remember to stay grounded," he cautioned. "With success comes pressure, and I don't want you to lose sight of what's important." "I won't," she promised, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "I'm doing this for myself, not just for the bet." As the days turned into a blur of preparations for the magazine feature, Carolina felt a sense of exhilaration. She was finally stepping into her own, and the support from Lucas fueled her ambition. But as the launch date approached, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. The night before the magazine release, Carolina and Lucas attended a high-profile gala together. It was a lavish event, filled with influential figures from the fashion industry, and Carolina was both excited and nervous. She wore a stunning gown from her collection, and as they entered the venue, all eyes were on them. "Look at you," Lucas said, his voice low as he admired her. "You're a vision." "Thanks," she replied, feeling a rush of confidence. "I couldn't have done this without you." As they mingled with guests, Carolina felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. She was no longer just the overweight woman from the past. She was a force to be reckoned with. But as the night wore on, she noticed Lucas becoming increasingly distant. He was polite and charming to everyone around them, but there was a tension in his demeanor that she couldn't ignore. "Are you okay?" she asked, leaning closer to him as they stood by the bar. He forced a smile. "Yeah, just a little overwhelmed, I guess." "Overwhelmed or something else?" she probed, her intuition kicking in. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's just, this is a big night for you, and I want you to shine. But I can't help but feel like I'm in the way." "Lucas, you're not in the way. You're my partner in this," she insisted, her heart aching at the thought of him feeling inadequate. "I know, but I can't shake the feeling that I'm just a distraction. You're on the verge of something incredible, and I'm just the guy who made a bet," he said, his voice tinged with frustration. "Stop it," she said firmly, taking his hand. "You're so much more than that to me. You've helped me become who I am today." He looked at her, his expression softening. "I just don't want to hold you back. You deserve to be with someone who can match your ambition." "Lucas, you're not holding me back. You're part of my journey," she replied, her voice steady. "I want you by my side no matter what happens." As they stood there, the tension between them crackled with unspoken feelings. Carolina could feel the weight of their situation pressing down on them, and she knew they were at a crossroads. But before she could say anything more, a commotion erupted across the room. A group of fashion influencers had gathered around a table, and the atmosphere shifted as whispers filled the air. Carolina's heart raced as she caught snippets of conversation. Words like scandal and betrayal floated through the crowd. "What's going on?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. Lucas's expression darkened. "I don't know, but it doesn't sound good." As they approached the gathering, Carolina's stomach dropped. A well-known fashion blogger was standing on a chair, holding up a copy of the magazine that was set to release the next day. "Did you all see this? Carolina's story is nothing but a publicity stunt. She was just a bet." Gasps filled the room, and Carolina felt her heart sink. "What? No!" she exclaimed, her voice rising above the chaos. The blogger continued, "This billionaire married her for a bet, and now she's trying to sell you all a fairy tale." Don't be fooled. Carolina's mind raced as she processed the implications of the accusation. This was not just a rumor, it was a direct attack on everything she had worked for. She felt a surge of anger and humiliation wash over her. "Lucas, we need to do something," she said, her voice trembling. He nodded, his jaw clenched. "Let's confront this head-on." As they stepped forward, Carolina felt a mix of fear and determination. She had fought so hard to build her brand, and she wasn't going to let anyone tear it down without a fight. "Everyone listen," she called out, her voice steady despite the chaos. "This is not a publicity stunt. I've worked tirelessly to create something meaningful, and I won't let anyone undermine my journey." The crowd fell silent, and she could see a mix of skepticism and curiosity in their eyes. "Yes, I entered into a bet with Lucas, but that doesn't define who I am or what I've accomplished. I've transformed my life, and I'm proud of what I've built." Lucas stepped beside her, his presence solid and reassuring. "Carolina is not just a project. She's a visionary. This is her moment, and I stand by her." The crowd began to murmur, and Carolina could feel the tide shifting. She took a deep breath, channeling her passion. "I want to inspire women to embrace their bodies and their dreams. This is about empowerment, not a bet." As she spoke, she could see the skepticism in some faces begin to fade. The influencers who had gathered were starting to reconsider their opinions. The blogger, however, was not ready to back down. "Is that what you really believe, Carolina? Or is this just a way to save face?" she challenged, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Carolina felt a surge of defiance. "I believe in myself and I believe in my brand. I'm not going to let anyone define my worth or my journey." The crowd erupted into applause, and Carolina felt a rush of adrenaline. She had taken a stand, and it felt liberating. But as the applause faded, she turned to Lucas, who was watching her with a mixture of pride and concern. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice low. "I will be," she replied, her heart racing. "But we need to address this before it spirals out of control." Lucas nodded, determination etched on his face. "Let's hold a press conference tomorrow. We'll set the record straight." As they left the gala, Carolina felt a mix of exhilaration and anxiety. She had faced the crowd and stood up for herself, but the battle was far from over. The next day would be crucial, and she knew they had to be prepared for whatever came next. That night, as she lay in bed, Carolina couldn't shake the feeling that the stakes had just been raised. The bet was coming to an end, but now it felt like a new challenge was beginning, one that would test not only her resolve, but also her relationship with Lucas. Little did she know, the revelations that awaited them would change everything. The morning of the press conference arrived with a sense of urgency that buzzed in the air. Carolina woke up early, her mind racing with thoughts of the previous night's events. The backlash from the gala had been swift, and she knew that today was her chance to reclaim her narrative. She had to be strong, articulate, and unwavering in her resolve. As she prepared for the day, she chose a powerful outfit from her collection, tailored blazer and fitted trousers that exuded confidence. She wanted to show the world that she was not just a woman who had been part of a bet, she was a force to be reckoned with in the fashion industry. Lucas arrived at the penthouse just as she was finishing her makeup. He looked sharp in a crisp suit, but there was a tension in his posture that made her heart race. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, his voice steady but laced with concern. "I have to be," Carolina replied, meeting his gaze. "I can't let them define me or my brand." He nodded, admiration shining in his eyes. "We'll face this together, just remember to stay true to yourself." As they made their way to the press conference venue, Carolina felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. The media had gathered in droves, and the atmosphere was electric. Reporters, photographers, and influencers buzzed around the room, their cameras flashing as they caught glimpses of the couple. Once they stepped onto the stage, the noise quieted, and all eyes turned to them. Carolina took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle on her shoulders. She glanced at Lucas, who gave her an encouraging nod, and she knew she had to speak from the heart. "Thank you all for being here today. she began, her voice steady. "I want to address the rumors that have circulated regarding my journey and my brand. Yes, I entered into a bet with Lucas, but that does not define who I am or what I've accomplished." The room was silent, and she could feel the intensity of their attention. "I've worked tirelessly to build my fashion line, and it's rooted in a mission to empower women of all shapes and sizes. This is about more than just clothing. It's about self-acceptance and confidence." As she spoke, she could see some reporters taking notes, their expressions shifting from skepticism to intrigue. "I refuse to let anyone undermine my journey, or the hard work that has gone into creating this brand. I am proud of who I am and what I stand for." Lucas stepped forward, his presence commanding. "Carolina is not just a project or a bet. She is a visionary. I stand by her and I believe in her mission. Together, we are committed to changing the narrative around body positivity in the fashion industry." The crowd erupted into applause, and Carolina felt a surge of empowerment. She had taken a stand, and it was resonating with the audience. But as the applause faded, a reporter raised her hand, her expression skeptical. "Carolina, how do you respond to those who say this is all just a publicity stunt? That you're using your relationship with Lucas to gain fame?" she asked, her tone challenging. Carolina took a deep breath, refusing to let the question rattle her. "I understand that people may have their doubts, but I can assure you that my journey is authentic. I've faced my own struggles, and I'm here to share my story, not for fame, but to inspire others." Another reporter chimed in. "What happens when the bet is over? Will you still be a couple, or is this just a temporary arrangement?" Carolina felt a pang of anxiety at the question. She glanced at Lucas, who was watching her intently. "That's something we're still figuring out," she admitted, her voice steady. "But what I can say is that our relationship has grown beyond the bet. We've built something real together." The questions continued, and Carolina navigated each one, with poise and confidence. She could feel the tide turning in her favor, and with each answer, she solidified her position in the industry. But as the press conference came to a close, she couldn't shake the feeling that the real challenge was still ahead. As they stepped off the stage, Lucas turned to her, a proud smile on his face. "You were incredible, Carolina. You handled everything with grace." "Thanks, Lucas. I couldn't have done it without your support," she replied, feeling a rush of gratitude. But as they walked through the crowd, she noticed a group of reporters huddled together, whispering and pointing in their direction. The unease in her stomach returned, and she couldn't help but wonder what they were saying. Later that evening, as they returned to the penthouse, Carolina felt a mix of exhilaration and exhaustion. The press conference had gone better than she had hoped, but the lingering questions about their relationship weighed heavily on her mind. "Do you think we handled everything okay?" she asked, glancing at Lucas as they settled onto the couch. He nodded, but there was a hint of uncertainty in his eyes. "You were amazing, but I can't shake the feeling that this isn't over. The media loves a good story, and they'll keep digging." "I know," she replied, her heart racing. "But I'm not going to let them dictate my narrative. I'm going to keep pushing forward with my brand." Lucas leaned closer, his expression serious. "Just be careful. The more successful you become, the more scrutiny you'll face. I don't want you to get hurt." "I appreciate your concern, but I'm ready for this," she said, determination flooding her voice. "I've fought too hard to let anyone take that away from me." As the days passed, Carolina's fashion line continued to gain traction. Orders poured in, and she was featured in several articles highlighting her journey. But with the success came increased media attention, and the scrutiny of her relationship with Lucas intensified. One afternoon, as she was reviewing designs for her next collection, she received a call from her publicist. "Carolina, we need to talk about the latest article that just came out," her publicist said, her tone urgent. "What article?" Carolina asked, her heart sinking. "It's a hit piece questioning the authenticity of your relationship with Lucas. They're claiming that you're only with him for the publicity and that you're using the bet as a marketing ploy," her publicist explained. Carolina felt a surge of anger. "That's ridiculous. They don't know anything about us." "I know, but we need to address this before it spirals out of control. We can't let them undermine your brand," her publicist urged. "Okay, "What do you suggest?" Carolina asked, her mind racing. "We need to do a follow-up interview. You can clarify your feelings for Lucas and emphasize the authenticity of your journey," her publicist advised. Carolina nodded, determination flooding her veins. "Let's do it. I won't let anyone dictate my story." As they scheduled the interview, Carolina felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was ready to confront the media head-on and show the world that her journey was real. But as the interview date approached, she couldn't shake the feeling that the stakes were higher than ever. That evening, as she and Lucas prepared for the interview, she could sense the tension between them. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, his expression serious. "I am, but I need you to be honest with me," Carolina replied, her heart racing. "What do you really want from this relationship?" Lucas hesitated, his gaze searching hers. "I want to support you, but I also don't want to complicate things. This was supposed to be a bet, and I don't want to lose sight of that." "Lucas, it's more than that now. We've built something real together," she insisted, her voice steady. "I need to know if you're all in." He took a deep breath, his expression softening. "I care about you, Carolina, more than I ever expected, but I'm scared of what happens when the bet is over." "Then let's figure it out together," she said, her heart pounding. "I don't want to walk away from this without knowing what we could be." As they prepared for the interview, Carolina felt a mix of hope and anxiety. She was ready to confront the media and reclaim her narrative, but she also knew that the real challenge lay in navigating her relationship with Lucas. Little did she know, the revelations that awaited them would change everything once again. The day of the follow-up interview arrived, and Carolina felt a whirlwind of emotions swirling within her. She had prepared extensively, rehearsing her answers and anticipating the questions that would come her way. This was her chance to set the record straight and show the world that her journey was authentic. As she and Lucas arrived at the studio, the atmosphere buzzed with energy. Cameras flashed and reporters milled about, eager to catch a glimpse of the couple. Carolina took a deep breath, reminding herself of her purpose. She was not just there to defend her relationship, she was there to share her story. The host welcomed them warmly, and as they settled into their seats, Carolina felt a surge of determination. "Thank you for having us," she said, her voice steady. "Let's get right into it," the host said, turning to Carolina. "There's been a lot of speculation about your relationship with Lucas. Some people believe it's all just a publicity stunt. How do you respond to that?" Carolina met the camera's gaze, her heart racing. "I understand that people may have their doubts, but I can assure you that my relationship with Lucas is genuine. Yes, we started this journey as part of a bet, but what we've built together goes far beyond that." The host nodded, encouraging her to continue. "Can you elaborate on how your relationship has evolved?" "Absolutely," Carolina replied, her passion igniting. "When we first started this, I was just trying to prove something to myself, but as we worked together, I realized that Lucas saw me for who I truly am. He supported me through my transformation, and I've come to care for him deeply." Lucas leaned in, his expression earnest. "I never expected to develop feelings for Carolina. She's not just a project. She's an incredible woman with a vision. I stand by her and I believe in her mission." The host smiled, clearly intrigued. "So, what does the future hold for both of you? What happens when the bet is over?" Carolina felt a rush of vulnerability at the question. She glanced at Lucas, who was watching her intently. "That's something we're still figuring out," she admitted. "But I want to explore what we have. I don't want to walk away from this without knowing what we could be together." The host nodded, sensing the weight of the moment. "It sounds like you both have a lot to consider. But what about the critics? How do you plan to address the skepticism surrounding your brand?" Carolina took a deep breath, her resolve strengthening. "I plan to keep pushing forward. My brand is about empowerment and inclusivity, and I won't let anyone undermine that. I want to inspire women to embrace their bodies and their dreams, regardless of what others think." As the interview continued, Carolina felt a sense of liberation. She was finally able to articulate her journey and her feelings for Lucas without fear of judgment. The more she spoke, the more she realized that she was not just defending her relationship, she was celebrating it. After the interview wrapped up, the host thanked them for their honesty and vulnerability. As they stepped off the set, Carolina felt a rush of adrenaline. She had faced the media head-on, and it felt empowering. "Carolina, you were amazing," Lucas said, his eyes shining with pride. "You handled everything with such grace." "Thanks, Lucas. I couldn't have done it without your support," she replied, feeling a warmth spread through her. As they left the studio, Carolina felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead, both in her career and in her relationship with Lucas. But as they walked to the car, she couldn't shake the feeling that the real test was still to come. In the days that followed, the interview garnered significant attention, and Carolina's brand continued to thrive. Orders poured in, and she was invited to speak at various events, sharing her story and advocating for body positivity. But with the success came increased scrutiny, and the media continued to speculate about her relationship with Lucas. One evening, as they sat together in their penthouse, Carolina decided it was time to confront the issue head-on. "Lucas, we need to talk about the media attention. It's becoming overwhelming." He nodded, his expression serious. "I know. It's hard to ignore the rumors, but we can't let them dictate our relationship." "I agree, but I also don't want to hide what we have," she said, her heart racing. "I want to be open about my feelings for you." Lucas took a deep breath, his gaze steady. "I care about you, Carolina, more than I ever expected, but I'm still scared of what happens when the bet is over." "Then let's make a decision together," she suggested, her voice firm. "Let's not wait until the end of the year to figure this out. I want to know if we can build something real." He looked at her, his expression softening. "I want that too, but I need to know that you're not just doing this for the publicity." "I'm not," she replied, her heart pounding. "I'm doing this because I believe in us. I believe in what we can create together." As they talked, Carolina felt a sense of clarity wash over her. They were at a crossroads, and it was time to make a choice. She didn't want to walk away from this without knowing what they could become. The next day, Carolina and Lucas decided to hold a press conference together, announcing their commitment to each other and their plans for the future. They wanted to show the world that their relationship was genuine and that they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they stood before the cameras, Carolina felt a rush of excitement. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice steady. "We wanted to take this opportunity to address the speculation surrounding our relationship." Lucas stepped forward, his expression earnest. "What started as a bet has turned into something real for both of us. We've grown together, and we're committed to exploring our future as a couple." The crowd erupted into applause, and Carolina felt a surge of pride. They were taking control of their narrative, and it felt liberating. As the press conference concluded, Carolina and Lucas stepped away from the cameras, hand in hand. They had faced the media together, and it had strengthened their bond. In the weeks that followed, Carolina's brand continued to flourish, and her relationship with Lucas deepened. They supported each other through the ups and downs, navigating the challenges of fame and success together. As the one-year mark approached, Carolina reflected on how far she had come. She had transformed not only her appearance, but also her life. She was no longer defined by her past. She was a successful entrepreneur and a woman in love. On the day of their vow renewal, Carolina stood in front of a small gathering of friends and family, her heart racing with anticipation. Lucas looked dashing in a tailored suit, and as they exchanged vows, Carolina felt a sense of completeness wash over her. "I promise to support you, to believe in you, and to stand by your side as we navigate this journey together," she said, her voice filled with emotion. Lucas smiled, his eyes shining. "And I promise to cherish you, to celebrate your successes, and to love you for who you are." As they sealed their vows with a kiss, Carolina felt a wave of joy wash over her. They had turned a bet into a beautiful reality, and she knew that together they could face anything that came their way. In that moment, surrounded by love and support, Carolina realized that the true challenge had never been about transforming herself or winning a bet. It had been about discovering her worth, embracing her journey, and finding love in the most unexpected of places. As they celebrated their love, Carolina knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with promise, passion, and endless possibilities.